Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Thank you for being here with us today. The YouTube live chat poll for today is, when should minors be able to participate in social media? Played some of those clips from Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, with the conversation with Mark Zuckerberg. Ryan, were you able to watch any of that as it was happening? I don't know if you guys discussed any of it yesterday on the show.
No, Brad said it was happening kind of as the show was starting, and then we didn't hit it right then, and so we didn't really hit it the rest of the day either.
Did you watch it, though? Did you?
Not much. A little bit last night, but not a lot.
What did you see, Brad?
I've seen what I've cut for audio is what I've taken in pretty much.
Does it seem like we have the same conversation, at least on Capitol Hill, every time?
Yes. In fact, the first clip I saw pop up, I thought it was an old clip. And so I was like,
we're doing this again.
I just kind of scrolled past it. And I'm like, oh, this is the new stuff. Okay, because it's exactly right. Every year we're having this conversation, and it doesn't seem to be doing a lot, at least out in the open. Now, maybe behind the scenes stuff's happening and nobody wants to publicly admit that.
What about you?
It seems like we all agree that there is a problem with social media and how it affects young girls, and just in general, there's a big problem. But it seems like there's two very different thoughts on how we should fix it. You've got the Democrats in Blumenthal with, like, we need to put more regulation on this. We need to rein it in and garner control. Sounds like to me, Zuckerberg wants the government to put that control on there. And I don't know if that's just he wants to avoid liability. But I think that what you're seeing from Hawley and Cruz and their ilk is what they're looking for is for the social media companies to take it upon themselves to regulate this stuff. And then you can do that, and there's like, all right, well, nothing happens because nobody can agree on it.
Well, I mean, as a conservative, I'm not someone who's sitting here like, more regulation, more regulation, more regulation. Is it good that we don't let underage kids drink alcohol?
Yes.
Why?
They are not capable of handling it yet.
Biologically.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, you can show biologically, scientifically, how a child's body would react to the consumption of alcohol versus somebody who's what is it, like 25 or 26 is the age of maturity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mentally. Yeah. That's why you get lower insurance once you hit 25.
I think there are certainly other things that are regulated. Smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you? Well, actually, I think you can legally smoke before you're 18. You just can't buy it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I think. I don't think it's illegal. Somebody smarter than us, tell us. Text me. Police officers. I almost said pastors.
Pastors?
Do you have priests out there? Do you have confessionals with children being like, I smoked a cigarette today?
Well, that wasn't legal.
We do regulate things based on scientific, provable impact on underdeveloped people. Sounds like the new way to call children in the woke
Underdeveloped
world.
people.
Underdeveloped. Man, that shouldn't just be children. I know some adults. And overdeveloped. I am somebody who I would advocate. I don't know if this is my answer in this poll yet. And I've said this before. I ask a YouTube live chat poll, when should minors be able to participate in social media? Our options today are anytime. There should be no regulation. That's the first answer. The second one is anytime parent approved. The third time is as a teenager, so 13 plus. And the last one is 18 plus. So basically not as a child when you are 18, which is when we've determined adulthood begins. I am leaning towards the 18 plus.
So am I.
I am going to put my fuddy-duddy hat on now and say that when we were growing up, we did need to communicate with one another. I did talk on the phone at length. Like some of my greatest friends that I've ever had and still have, I would sit on the phone. I mean, we would talk for 3 hours on a corded phone where the base of the phone was in the kitchen and the blue spiral cord would wrap around and I would sit next to the vent in my parents' room because that's where it was. And yeah, my parents could pick up another line and listen in anytime they wanted to. They didn't that I know of. Maybe they did. I don't think parents in the 90s cared.
Ooh, let's
in
hear what her Tamagotchi's been
in
doing.
in that realm, like there wasn't an overseeing in the way that there is right now, but I think the stakes were different. And there was bullying. Oh my gosh, I was bullied so bad in middle school, and I know that I treated girls disrespectfully. I'm guilty of what I was hurt by. The same mechanism. I've seen it happen with my kids. But the entrance of social media is so inflammatory and unnecessary. I see so much bad and so little good. I don't have a problem with texting. My kids, like I've said this story before, and I keep talking about this because I want to empower other parents out there to be comfortable in just saying, sorry, kids, no. I wish that we would have more people collectively willing to say that. We have 2 extra phones in our house. They text their friends a lot. They don't ever carry that phone around with them in public. They do not sit on those phones at home socially. But they can go, they have to ask first, they can go check their text messages. I also interchange the phones between the 2 of them. I remind them, they'll be like, can I go get my phone? I'm like, you don't have a phone. Can I go get the green phone? Yeah. There's a green phone and there's a red phone because those are the cases that were left on them after I upgraded from them. And my daughter will text from both phones. My son will text from both phones. So anything, I purposely make it so that they interchange them so that anything that they do could be intercepted by their sibling and certainly overseen by us as their parents. I don't want to cut off their social life and their ability to communicate with their friends. I want them to be able to have that camaraderie that I know that exists out there, but you're not doing it on Snapchat. It's just not happening. I've never given an inch on it, and I keep saying these are 100% decisions that are made with my husband and me being, and he's a middle school teacher, so he probably knows exponentially more about the dangers of this than I do. But I also am a psychotic reader when it comes to reading all the bad stories. The exposure for pornography for children is like in the single digits of age when kids first see pornography. They can't even begin to understand what they're seeing, and that's their exposure to it. Kids bully through social media posts. My daughter has been bullied through public facing social media posts from somebody who wanted to woke up every day to ruin my daughter's day. And it affected my daughter, and I watched it happen. And we were able to push back on it. And we had good people who were willing to stand up for what was right and rectify the situation. Me saying no social media is the easiest thing that I can think of to protect them while they're still young. And I know that their friends are on it in some capacity. And they know, I've told them, this is why you're not. And I do believe that they understand why we're doing it. I don't think they like it, but I do think they understand it. And I don't understand I don't understand parents who are so persuaded by the begging from your children. Every kid's different. Every parent's different. But when my kids are begging me for something, it's because, and they're smart, they've seen the crack. They know that there is just even the tiniest glimmer of light coming through that they think that they can expand a little bit. And the begging only happens when they see a crack. You can't have a crack. If you're like, no, that's funny that you even think that that's a possibility. No, absolutely not. Anyway, moving on. At least for my kids, and they believe me, there's a firmness, there's a sternness. And I think that the most important thing is this is easier said than done in some cases and in some ages. Your kids have to know that you just love them to death. And that if you are making this decision that is ruining their day or their life, that it's because you love them to death. And kiddo, I just know better than you do. And you have to trust me on it. You don't have to like me on it.
Here's the thing. That attitude has to start from birth.
It's true.
Because if you don't start there, you really can't rebuild the dam. once you've let the water go.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that, oh, shoot, I've kind of messed up. That doesn't mean you can't do anything. It just means that the easiest and best way to do that is from day one, say, here are the parameters. And those parameters are going to move every year they get older, but you have to have them and then shift them as necessary. But you got to be, like you said, you have to be united, like between
Yeah.
you and your husband.
Yeah, we
because
are locked and ready to go.
if you're not, and if you're a single parent, you're united among yourself, so that's almost easier in a sense. But you have to be united. You have to present that front, and then you have to stick with it. And you can't take days off from it. You
Ever.
just can't, because that's the moment where you go, you know what? We've done this thing with sugar, and it's very comparable to everything else, but it's been sugar. Like from the time the kids were little, we limited the amount that they've eaten. Now we have 2 9-year-olds and we have a 6-year-old. Well, the 6-year-old has gotten to benefit from the rules that we set for the 9-year-old, that he's gotten a lot more because we allow the boundaries to move a little bit on the 9-year-olds. Well, then it moves on him too. So we've maintained a front, but we've been a little bit more lax with him, and that kind of stuff happens. But I'm using that to illustrate a point that whatever the rules are, you still have to keep them. And they're going to be different for everybody, but you got to keep them, and you really can't relax on them even when you're moving them.
Josh says on YouTube, you can't just release 18-year-olds into the wide world after being sheltered and treated as a complete child all their life. Gradually got to let go before they are on their own. True. But you also have to understand, that's I think that I know that I've definitely made a concession in allowing them access to phones for texting. The fact that that even exists in our house is a concession on my part. But at the same time, social media, what goes on in social media, what kind of upkeep that takes in a person's life who has a social media account. I don't know at this point in time with my son. My son's 14. I think it's probably different between boys and girls a little bit. But with my son being 14, my daughter being 11, and they're probably, honestly, scientifically about the same maturity level. I don't know that putting them into that social media world when they're 15 and 16 is healthy for them. And it really, in my opinion, takes more parents who are willing to just say no in order for people to I understand social media is part of the real world. I understand that this is what a lot of people are on. There are so many things that are part of the real world that most of the kids are doing, or that enough of the kids are doing, that there is no way over my dead body would I be like, well, this is how it goes. I'm not the parent who's going to say, you need to learn how to drink at home when you're 16. Like, I want you to do that around me so that you learn how to consume. That's not happening. It's just not happening. It's not healthy for them. And if you watch, the news stories that come across that talk about suicide, sextortion, where these people find these young boys, they convince them that they're this young, beautiful woman. They send some photos. As soon as they got those photos, they're like, give me your money. If you don't give me your money, I'm going to tell everybody I'm going to ruin your life. And then these kids will say, don't do that. I'm going to kill myself. And they're like, you should kill yourself. And then they kill themselves over my dead body. Will I be putting my kid, if he's not mentally prepared for that, in that situation? It's hard to be a conservative, no regulation, minimal government, limited government type of a person and look at this and reconcile the two. But I also know about regulations that exist on our children because we understand their brains, what they're willing to, capable of processing. And I'm wondering, because this is new territory, if there is something that should be in place legally or if it should just be left to the parent, because I know a lot of parents who are just leaving their kids to be able to access all of these things and they have no idea what their kids are getting into.
And I really feel strongly about this, that there are people listening right now who feel like they as parents have failed, or, gosh, it's gotten too far. I can't really do anything now. Or you're a grandparent and you feel like your kids have just open the gates wide and your grandkids are just wild, whatever. I don't want, when I say you got to start day one, that's the best way to do it. If you haven't done that, just like Annie was saying, putting parameters on things, even if you feel like they're not going to follow them and they're going to hate you or it's not going to work, they will love you because you're doing it. If they have had no discipline or lack of discipline, even if it's not no discipline, if they've just had a lack of discipline with any area and you decide, you know what, we need to change that, they're not going to respond well to that, but they will know that you love them and you're doing it because you love them, and they will respond to that in the long term, even if not in the short term. I just want to encourage you if you're listening and you're in that boat.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. And I know that, I mean, even with my 4 children, the youngest being 2.5, so we're not quite anywhere with her yet when it comes to social media, but I do know that every kid is different, and every kid's ability to access social media and handle it in an appropriate, respectful way is going to be a little bit different. But that's no different than alcohol. I know people who are 21 years old, 22 years old, 25 years old, 50 years old. They all handle alcohol a little bit differently. And we've still said that you don't even get to do it until this age, at least not legally.
I handle it very poorly, for instance.
Yeah.
Like a White Claw can make me feel like I'm flying for about 15 minutes.
That's supposed to be Red Bull.
Yes, and it is not. No. It's just any alcohol. For 15 minutes, I will tell you my life story
right now.
A little bit.
It's getting me high.
You have a certain sheen to you today.
What do you call that? A patina?